Like I said in the previous episode talk, this one was the best finale of Revenge. Nothing against season 4, but they rushed into it. Sure, they gave us fulfilling moments. Major spoiler alert. Like Victoria's death and Amanda's wedding. But this one was perfect. We had the tragic loss and end of Aiden that drove Emily almost over the edge. We had 2 twists with Victoria and David. And here with the beginning we finally get a seldom new flashback. I love the beautiful colors, it really looks like some magic dreamland. You can argue that Emily obviously thought of this because of the ring Jack gave her and what he told her about the cabin, but I think they are really trying to hint to David's return later. Cause since the wedding and the last flashback to explain her blackouts we had them never really spoken that much about David, though the conspiracy around him should be the driving force for Emily's action. But they mostly talk about the recent deaths of Declan and Amanda in season 2. And that Emily is honoring their memory. No to forget Aiden with his father and sister. But it was slow boiling to make a big reveal, so I liked this little scene which I use in almost any of my Aiden and Emily vids. I just love his smile and that Emily says I love you for the last time. I think it was in the commentary to this episode that someone said this was the first hint that something would happen to him. Cause everyone Emily tells I love you something bad happens to him. First her father David, then Fomanda and later Jack in season 4. I know it is not her fault and it is just a trope on television. But it's a little bit funny too. That they combine the most happy moments with the most sad ones. And for me as a viewer it is always cruel cause they are sending us down this emotional rollercoaster. But I guess that is the appeal of drama. And I do not know if this was intentionally or just a coincidence, but she looks a lot like in that flashback with their first kiss from season 2. When they said goodbye before Aiden left. The top she is wearing and the short cut hair. Though here it is only hidden in her pajama top. But it reminds me of that passionate kiss goodbye. About Victoria leaving for Pascal's funeral. This scene was cheap. I know they could not afford to actually shoot in Europe. But could they not pretend? Why show us this silly procession with Daniel, Margot and Victoria? It was a nice idea of her putting that orchid on the grave but totally out of place because the coffin is going to be flown to France, and only there he comes into earth. So since Victoria is surely attending the funeral of his fiancée, she would have thrown the flower into the grave. The only thing that was fitting was Victoria's black dress with the golden embroidery. Like a mourning window queen. And her scattered hair that made her look like a lunatic. About Conrad's presence in court. Interesting especially for the last season that they all think Charlotte was behind this. I mean she hated her father since she knew about the bomb that killed Declan, but how could she know that he killed her father? Victoria never bothered to tell her, and the whole conspiracy was something she could not learn of in the news. There were only the bad book of Mason Treadwell who supported the story and lies of the Graysons. And she barely was around when Emily brought something to light in her takedowns. Anyway, his speech shows once again how pathetic such powerful men are when the deeds are apparent and they still do not get it that their game is over. About the evidence the judge obviously got from Emily. Here it is again, this vast plot hole with the evidence Emily gathered throughout the whole show. All the time they told us it was not enough to get Conrad in jail, and suddenly the evidence fulfills its purpose. Like I said, they are not very much consistent with their plot lines. But I guess we have to live with it, since Revenge would have been a lot more dull if they played by the rules. Though I do not like her outfit at all with that big sunglasses and the leopard dress. It underlines her status as a predator who took down his bait. A fitting metaphor for Emily and her revengender. And this little celebration with Emily's 3 musketeers was nice, too. Since finally they all took part in taking down Conrad, even Jack. About the cabin. I still cannot figure out what the story with the ring and the cabin should be. A first hint at David's return, because when he did not die he would still wear the ring, and that would be the reason why Amanda did not become it with the diaries. But why would he took it off and place it somewhere in the open than hide it? I always thought that this thug Victoria hired planted it there for Charlotte to find, so that Emily would get to know about it and walk into this trap. But since David had been hiding, it could have been his actual hiding spot. Was that just a coincidence? Or were they just too sloopy with this and did not know where the plot in season 4 would go? About Margot's brother Gideon. Not only because he is Pascal's son, Gideon would have made a far better enemy in season 4 than Malcolm Black. I know they had to find a reason why David was gone so long and faked his own death, and never contacted his daughter. Obviously they would not go for memory loss again, since they did this already with Emily for a while. And even for revenge, this soap opera trope seems just too silly. Even though Malcolm Black was portrayed very well, I did not like that storyline. And since Gideon is introduced here and took Charlotte down with him in season 4, would have been nice seeing him being a source of trouble not only for Daniel and Margot but for Emily, too. Instead of making him this drug addict spoiled little kid who is jealous of his big sister, they could have gave him some kind of Hamlet Viper. That he wants to revenge his father's death and cannot understand why Margot is letting this go so easily. Since I do not understand it myself, why she is throwing herself into work without digging deeper. And since Conrad already is in jail, it would have been far more understandable why he goes after Daniel, because he is Conrad's son, and could have been involved. Then Daniel and Victoria, to protect her son, of course, could have let Gideon to Emily. I mean the whole plot in the episode before with Daniel's conspiracy theory. They just let it fall with this little but sweet scene between Daniel and Margot. Why did they not use this in season 4? And if Emily did know what Gideon had done with her little sister, she surely would have had enough reasons to take him down. So the sisters could have found a common ground and bound over this instead of fighting against each other. Oh, and I forgot that he was plotting with Nolan against Daniel. So Nolan could have tell Emily firsthand how dangerous and much of a psychopath Gideon is. I still wonder why he did not told Emily about this episode. Anyway, it is like it is, and the story with the three was not that bad. I like how Daniel is protecting Margot and they plot against Gideon. After all, he is not that different from Emily when it comes to people he cares about. About Javier again. Like I said, I do not like that he is not coming back for season 4. Yes, I like Nolan, Emily and Jack forming the core of Revenge. And they are a great team. But would it have been so difficult to swoop in some scenes with Javier? I mean, being Charlotte's love interest obviously does not work. Though they could have gone for an on-off relationship like Emily had with Aiden. That would have kept Charlotte and him occupied while Javier and Nolan are working together on My Clone. In season 2 they had something quite similar with Marco. And like with Jack, Nolan does not have to have a romantic relationship with any male he is friends with. So Javier could have stick around and maybe be even an impartial observer of all the frenzy that is to come in season 4. Cause Nolan and Jack are obviously in too deep to be a corrective for Emily anymore. And I liked the actor and the humor he brought in. So I was very much disappointed that Charlotte sent him away and he left the show this unceremoniously. About Conrad's trial. That was something I did not like of the finale. We did not get to see any trial, so that we also do not know anything about the new evidence than just this little piece of paper. Which, like Pascal stated in the previous episodes, was just circumstantial and therefore could not hold in court. So why should it be sufficient now for Conrad's murder trial? Since he has best paid lawyers, Conrad could have found out in no time that this would not have been a real threat for him. About Victoria trying to confirm Emily's identity. I know the whole purpose of this was to make Emily aware of Victoria's assumptions and that she has to be careful and move faster with her. But I still do not get it why Victoria still needs confirmation. Does it really matter for her if Emily is Amanda? In the next season she shows no difference between her attitude and behavior towards Emily. She still hates that girl like no one else and even more like her ex-husband Conrad. And instead of showing remorse or at least some sympathy for that girl who is the daughter of her claimed one and only love David, she is constantly trying to make Emily's life as miserable as she can. So why looking for answer when this does not change the fact that Emily was plotting against her family and was out for revenge the whole time? I believe her motive that she is David's daughter does not matter in the end since her agenda and her actions stay the same. At least this fighting scene gave us the chance to see Emily one more time in action. Those fighting scenes have become very rare since season 2. About Emily and Aiden. This little scene was not that special but nicely shot. I like the use of these floating curtains again and that they show us the two in that frame. The beach house really have become a sanctuary and a home for Emily and Aiden. So it is the more tragic and sad that Victoria in some kind violated it by putting Aiden's dead body on the couch where he and Emily were sitting and plotting together and also had sex one time. Like with the traumatic experience of the arrest by the FBI, the beach house is now for all time linked to this tragic loss. About the fatal error sending Aiden to Michelle Banks. I know Emily could have not known that Victoria was planning to kill Aiden. But could she not assume that Victoria got to her first? Since she was already aware of Emily's list and it would have been not that big problem to get to all of her past targets, since Victoria witnessed almost every one of her takedowns. I think the only time she was not around was when Father Paul was blackmailed by Emily. In season 1 she and Conrad were every time present because the takedowns took place on a Grayson event. And in season 2 besides the Falcon they were always some kind invited to those events when Emily took those people down. Only season 3 was more private since we got not that big parties but personal encounters and even more targets Emily took down for personal reasons. Especially during her blackouts. But all the conspirators who did not die yet would have been easy to contact for Victoria. Anyway, maybe Emily thinks she is in time and trusted Aiden to find the right angle on Dr. Banks, since as Victoria's psychologist she could offer enough dirty little secrets to take her down. About Conrad's duplicity with that guard. I still like that little stunt through it is just so unbelievable. But they made this twist at the end just too good. First the guard is assaulting Conrad here because of obvious reasons. Then he is the one who seemed to be bribed by Conrad to let him out. Since his case is that desperate, Conrad obviously sees no other way out than to flee. And he surely has enough money to flee in any country that has no judicial agreement with the states. I believe he planned to go something like Cuba or any South American dictatorial state. But we will talk about the last twist of this at the end. For now I love this scene and use it very often cause it perfectly shows his deep fall. For the first time he gets to know how David must have felt in prison. About Aiden's death scene. This one came out of nowhere and is still tough to watch for me. Cause it seems to be almost in real time seeing how he dies. Anyway, I am still shocked that Victoria is that ruthless and cunning. Though for storytelling and fun it was a brilliant idea making her poison the tea for Aiden. We learned as she talked with Patrick about her past that she hates tea and Aiden is British, so the perfect reference for her pun. And in her black outfit she looks like a black widow from Medici, Italy. With this scene it is tough for me. On the one hand, I cannot stand it since I have been rooting so much for Emily and Aiden. And I really hate her acid speech and how she mocks Aiden and his relationship with Emily. On the other hand, this scene is a treasure for the purpose of catharsis, and you like to watch it because it is so heartbreaking sad. And I just adore that he is fighting till the end and reassures us as the audience that Emily will revenge his death by claiming that she will win this war in the end. Victoria's reaction to his desperate attempt of killing her was interesting. I think it was also in the commentary that someone pointed out that she was suicidal since her lover Pascal was killed. And I think this is not entirely true. 'Cause she did the same with Jack when he threatened her with a gun at the end of season 2. Funny, in almost every season Victoria is in danger to die. In the first we had that plane crash in which we thought she died. In season 2 Jack wanted to shoot her but reconsidered it. In this season it seems as if Aiden here or later Emily would kill her. It might be a bit creepy and odd, but for me it always appeared almost romantic how they both go down and she is touching his face. I do not know if they wanted to arouse this image, but it looks like a mantis. Even more with the green skirt. Anyway, her famous quote, which I use very often for my Amanda and Victoria vids, shows how merciless and cruel she really is.
Emily ripped away my chance for true love. It's only fair that I do the same for her.
She just tells herself the lie Emily was responsible for Pascal's death to justify the murder of this man. And she is fully aware that this will hurt Emily to the core. So here Victoria is really the most cruel and sick than ever. They did a good job to make us hate her in season 4. Even more, as she cannot wait till the poison puts an end to Aiden but must suffocate him with this pillow. I think if they did not made season 4, this would have been the end of the show. Conrad facing a lifetime in jail and Victoria killed by Emily to get even for the murder of Aiden. It is tough how natural they are showing his fight with death, and even he is weakened by the poison. Victoria has a hard time keeping that pillow on his face. But it was good showing us how hard and long killing is for educational reasons. Since in most TV shows and movies, especially from sci-fi or with supernatural creators, death comes in seconds from one minute to another. And it is too easy and meaningless if someone gets killed. Here you see that she had plenty of time to reconsider and put the pillow away. Okay, that would have not saved him since the poison is quick. But you know what I mean. Killing is a choice, and in most modern movies and TV shows they just do not take the time to show this. Another reasons why I like some children's or youth movies and books, like Harry Potter and The Hunger Games. They always make a fuss about it when someone gets killed or some of the protagonists kill someone. They show us the consequences not only for those who are close to the victims but for the killer himself. I know some might think it is silly, but I still enjoy the story behind those Horcruxes that made Voldemort immortal. In order to split his soul in 7 parts, he had to murder 7 people. Not a big number for a mass murder or a serial killer. But they have this quote in the book and in the movie as well that still comes to my mind when I think about Victoria and Conrad and how many people they killed.
I'm not sure what you were reading, Tom, but this is very dark stuff, very dark indeed.
And how does one split his soul, sir?
I think you already know the answer to that, Tom.
Murder.
Yes, killing rips the soul apart. It is a violation against nature.
Can you only split the soul once? For instance, 6 and 7.
7? Merlin's beard, Tom. Isn't it bad enough to consider killing one person? To rip the soul into 7 pieces.
What I forgot, I like this little subtle shots and the transition here. That we see his hand showing us he is dead and that one single tear. And then Emily on her way to Jack's bar. I am glad that they made this scene so simple and cut out the speech like they said in the commentary. From season 1 I was no fan of Jack's speeches. They just seem not to fit his character and not quite fit into revenge. 'Cause we only have these speeches of Conrad and at official events, not in private, and a bar is surely not the right place to give such a speech. Her laugh and the tears in her eyes were just enough. And his hand on her cheek are so much more fitting than a long speech. For me it was enough that he said they would celebrate with drinks for free and then has no drink for Emily. Or maybe we did not see her drink. Yet this is a private story and I think no one in the bar or even before the television is truly interested in this old case. Maybe that some money bag like Conrad now sits in prison might be interesting. But his crimes and the man he framed, I doubt that anyone who is not affected by this personally, like Emily, Jack and Nolan, gives a damn about the 20-year-old story about David Clarke. And here comes the most heartbreaking scene I ever saw. Still it hits me how happy she is and first not gets it that Aiden is dead. Though his face surely shows the horror of his last minutes. But only when he feels his cold cheeks Emily can realize what happened and totally breaks down. And our hate for Victoria is piqued again because she seems to enjoy Emily's desperate crying. Though I doubt that she can truly hear it in her cupola. But they certainly try to make it appear that way. About Nolan and Jack care for Emily. This little scene was again beautifully filmed. I like that Nolan is blurred like a shadow behind her and the camera stays on Emily's face. Emily Van Camp really shows off her acting skills here. The way she is using her voice since we cannot see her eyes because of the dissolved mascara. And the pauses that show us how hard it is for her to speak. Though it is natural, I really hate the pattern that she always blames herself when anything bad happened to the ones she loved. In season 1 it was Nolan who blamed her after Jack got beaten and he was right since she calculated that in. But Formunder's death in season 2 and Aiden now is solely the fault of the Graysons. Conrad decided to get rid of Amanda so that she could not blackmail him anymore and get his hands on the evidence she got. And Victoria killed Aiden in return for Pascal's death, who was killed by Conrad, which was sure as hell not Emily's intention. In season 4 she does the same after, spoiler alert, Ben's death. Which was also not her fault since that assassin was hired by someone else and she did not know anything about it. So Nolan's attempt to tell her that Aiden chose his path and was always willing to sacrifice his life for her is the right thing to say. But offers not much comfort. Though I like Nolan's story, whether if he is making this up to make Emily feel better or Aiden really told him that she saved him from a broken life. It shows how much Aiden meant to Nolan, too. They had really grown into friends. At first because Nolan had in season 2 no other option than to accept Emil's new old boyfriend. But later when they worked together to save Padma and help Emily with her revenge agenda, they both really got close, attached to each other. Her reaction that she lost her reason to live was so sad and showed her devastation. And is so true since she only got 2 reasons for going on with her life. The love for Aiden and the possible happy future after this is all over. And her revenge agenda. So it was no big surprise that her first move would be to finish things with Victoria. Here Jack shows again how he copes with loss and tragedy, drinking. Besides this, I like that little shows. Nolan goes all in with crying as hard as Emily. Gabriel Mann really makes us believe his loss of Aiden even though they both had not that much scenes in this season. And Jack caring for Emily and her soul once again shows he is the only one left as Emily's conscious. Nolan is too deep in his loss and the rage about Victoria. So he cannot see clearly, and since Jack never really liked Aiden that much, he can analyze the situation more like we the audience would do. It was clever from the writers to arouse suspicion about if Emily would kill Victoria or not. And the next scene with them at the cemetery surely made almost everyone believe this would be the last episode for Madeleine Stowe. But since the show got renewed for one last season, I knew Victoria would not be killed. Because either Emily and Victoria could only die in the finale. Cause the show would be over with the death of one or two of the leading ladies. So I was only wondering what Emily's plan for Victoria was. And I must admit that for an instant plan and that she really had to get a hold of herself, Emily made up a great plan B. Plan of putting her in jail like Conrad was destroyed since Victoria got to Michelle Banks first, and after the killing it obviously was not enough punishment for Victoria. Emily surely wanted her to suffer more, and therefore she would not kill her, cause that would be too easy and almost painless. About Emily getting the help of Michelle Banks. This plan was perfect and flawless, almost too much for a plan B. Yet I really loved that scene because it brought back the most haunting backstory with little Amanda being held captive by Dr. Banks. And Emily's strong accusations and presence really hit me. She looks not at all desperate and small like in the scene before, but full of rage and revenge like in her best time in the previous seasons. I know she certainly has no other choice, but I think her remorse and apology comes from the heart. Especially after being confronted with Victoria's murder. I believe Michelle that she did not know what Victoria was up to. Cause after all she is a doctor who vowed to do no harm. Yes, she kept little Amanda in custody and brainwashed her. But with that she could tell herself that it would maybe even better for that little girl to never see her father again. After all, she had to believe that he would die in prison. And maybe in some twisted way she thought not being attached to her father anymore would spare Amanda an unhappy childhood. Landing in childcare was something she could not undo since Amanda's mother was nowhere to be found and the Graysons did not want to take her in. But killing an innocent man was surely something Michelle Banks was not okay with. And after everything she knows now, she cannot be okay anymore with what she did to little Amanda. Emily's reaction was predictable and totally fitting for her character. And since all she had to endure, the only reasonable reaction. Cause now Aiden is dead, we are beyond apologizing, making things right. About Emily and Charlotte. This shows at what low point their relationship already is. And Charlotte even does not know about her biggest lie and deceit. I know she has to be in defense because of her bad conscience. But I hate this pattern in season 4. It is hard seeing her on the outside because of her identity swap with Fomanda. It is hard to stomach that Charlotte can speak to her like that about Amanda and in season 4 be presented like a pony by her mother. Cause everyone believes she is the last living daughter of David Clarke. And instead of being reasonable and at least consider Emily's advice, Charlotte is throwing her out. Though I think Emily did not expect less, and her whole appearance was for show so that Victoria was lured to come to the cemetery. About the face-off on the cemetery. The perfect spot and fitting, like Victoria said. It has the real amount of creepiness with all that dead bodies under the ground. And with the grave of Fomanda and David the right personal anchor. At first I thought like Victoria that her stunt with the ring and that cabin did a number on Emily and she really would have dig up her father's grave. But then I thought, why would she do that when she is luring Victoria into a trap? So till she was telling us that she dig up Fomanda's grave, I thought she would be digging up a new grave for Victoria. And I was almost happy and relieved that we did not saw Victoria's dead body lying to Emily's feet in the next scene. I still love their conversation because they start like a pair in a screwball movie and fast break out in full hatred. And again Victoria shows how sick her thoughts are by referring to Aiden's dead body as a gift for Emily. Following her known pattern, Victoria just sees her pain and loss and has no empathy for Emily. I still cannot understand what the writers wanted with Victoria's line that she knew a different David than Amanda. Wanted they to prepare us for a very different David than in the flashbacks? 'Cause like Amanda he changed a lot in his time in prison and afterwards. Which is not very surprising since prison and life does that to a person. Or do they just make Victoria bluff her to confuse Emily? Since Victoria assumes she is as eager as her daughter Charlotte to get to know everything about her father. Yet Victoria underestimates the strong bond between little Amanda and her father. After all, she spent just some time with David in bed and talked about building a future together. Yet Amanda lived with him together and knew him in daily life. And even since she was a little girl, I think that Amanda knows her father better than a part-time lover who does not even care about David's plans for life. 'Cause in that little flashback he painted out their future, she was not that enthusiastic about it and cared more about having enough money. About Charlotte recognizing Jack as her abductor. I talked about this in the previous episode. It is sad that Jack got sucked into this mess between Emily and Charlotte in the first place. And in season 4 it gets really worse. What was also very much annoying and pathetic how Charlotte recognizes Jack's car and that his hand on her shoulder triggers the memory. I get that with PTSD you get flashbacks, but how could she know that this was Jack? Only because of that broken car seat. Really? And getting Jack arrested instead of confronting him about it. What is wrong with Charlotte? I know she should appear as this innocent victim. But in this scene it just feels like she is taking revenge cause Jack and Emily are keeping things from her. About Gideon's trap for Daniel. This was dark and I can totally understand Nolan's reaction. Killing an innocent girl hooker or not just to get this photo. Despicable. I have no words for this cause. This is killing almost for fun or sport. Conrad and Victoria had at least a reason to murder someone. Victoria mostly wanted to protect her family. Conrad wanted to get rid of his conspirators or fought a threat like Amanda and Pascal. But this goes far beyond. Gideon did not even know that girl. And killed her just to have something to blackmail Daniel. He could have faked it and just made him believe since he got that drunk with absinthe he would not remember anything. And with enough money the girl would surely played her role. Or he could have waited until she was asleep and be extra careful not to wake her. And that he does react that ice cold, showing no remorse or sympathy, makes him really to Pascal's son. About the big twist with Conrad and David. I must admit even thought all those little hints I did not see this coming. One moment I was hating the writers because they let Conrad go free and enjoy his life by singing that song and walking around in that beautiful blue night light. The next minute we saw David killing him in that brutal way. Many hate this twist, but for me it was perfect cliffhanger for the last season. 'Cause it aroused so many questions which I must admit they answered not very well. Yet for me it was a reason to be thrilled for the next season. 'Cause what you would wish the most if you lost your father at a young age? Of course to see him again. So Emily Van Camp could bring that childhood fantasy to live for me. For very personal reasons I see this not as a deception at all. And I can understand that they killing the premise of the show. But I still think this was brave instead of stupid. 'Cause what else should they have done in the next season? I mean, they could make Victoria and Emily fight to death like they did. But that was surely not enough for an entire season. And since Conrad was in jail they had no big enemy left. Emily reached her goal to exonerate her father, so there would be no reason to go after minor targets. And making revenge a franchise business with Nolan after she lost Aiden and has no money problems would not be appropriate. So bringing David back and letting her confront him and Victoria playing with him again this time to hurt Emily was a good idea. This plot was the most intriguing and kept me watching. Anything else would have been dull, I think. Then it had been better to pull the trigger and end the show here, with Conrad in jail and Victoria in custody. Another thing, I know he is in some kind stealing something of Emily's revenge drive. But for me it was poetic that he gets to kill the man who put him in jail. After all, it is his story and his revenge. Emily just took his place cause she thought he could not do anything since he was dead. And in season 4 she was finished, so it is only natural that she has no big reason to go on revenge spread since she is done. Last but not least, I like this organic transition. With the song and its really fitting lyrics and the bright blinding lights of the car headlights. The whole scene is some kind poetic with this almost artificial blue night sky and the fog. And then the shot of the floating bloodstream with Conrad's dead body disappearing in white light. About the last scene. Though the last revenge comes in season 4, this was my favorite scene. Cause again Emily follows her own rule that the punishment should fit the crime. Since Conrad put her father in jail for lifetime, he should see the same fate. And while Victoria made Amanda suffer in childcare and she was some kind locked up by Michelle Banks until she came into foster care, Emily is putting Victoria in an asylum so that she is no danger for her but still punished for her sins. The cherry on top is that no one would believe Victoria when she is trying to out Emily for her crimes. Cause she has the statement and fake documents of Michelle Banks that Victoria is going over the edge with her theory about Emily being Amanda Clarke. So her identity and the crimes she committed during her revengenda stay hidden. I love Emily's little voice in this. Again, she is speaking like she used to in season 1. And for every outstanding person it must seem as if she truly cares for Victoria's well-being and that she can overcome this mental crisis. I just love her reaction to Victoria. Watch me, is like an invitation for us audience and Victoria to look at her great performance here. And again she is wearing leoprint to show us her status as predator. I think since she was in court and is now in a mental institution, red would not have been much fitting for the occasion. On top, Victoria makes it easy for Emily to show her as a psychiatric case since she is that aggressive and shouting like a lunatic. Like Victoria in the scene with Aiden, Emily is touching her face almost as if she wants to reassure her friend that everything will be okay. And I love this hero shot of her putting her mantle on. In the commentary they talked about it like a superhero cape. That was not my initial association, but it surely has something heroic how she is walking down the corridor. So now we had for the last season, and I must admit that for me there is not only dark but very much light. Not only because we have this intriguing plot with David, Emily and Victoria. I hope you enjoyed those episode talks so long and are ready for the last ones. I think I will make a little less videos since more of the episodes have a longer running plotline. So there will not be an episode talk for every episode like I did with this season. But I am thrilled to rewatch season 4 after having seen the previous ones almost in a row.